Welcome to Luxury Icons, the marketing and PR podcast created by the Luxury Communications Council. I'm Rosie Shephard, the founder of the Luxury Communications Council, the world's only membership network dedicated to advancing the global luxury industry by uniting, supporting and championing marketing communication leaders. This podcast is dedicated to meeting some of the industry's most prolific leaders, delving into the challenges and opportunities that we face together. Welcome to today's episode, where I'm joined by Paula Fitzherbert, Global Head of Communication of the Maybourne Group and industry legend. Renowned for her unique ability to blend tradition with innovation, Paula has elevated Maybourne's brand presence globally, ensuring it remains a leader in luxury. She is also master at ensuring the hotels remain fresh and culturally relevant. Beyond her professional achievements, she's also known for her personal brand with a strong social media following that captures her passion for the industry. She's also one of the most popular figures in luxury, known for being kind, caring and truly supportive. She really is a true icon. Today we'll dive into her journey, her vision for the future of luxury hospitality and how she continues to captivate with her magic. Paula, welcome to Luxury Icons. You're our first ever guest.
Oh, thank you, Rosie, and thank you for such a generous introduction. I rarely do things like this, but obviously I'm captivated by you, but that was an honour to hear that, so thank you. Very nice.
You're
it's
welcome.
Me and a team, of course, as always.
Of course. Now, let's start from the beginning. Your journey into luxury hospitality, what drew you to the industry in the first place?
Like so many things with people, just chance, really. It wasn't something that I set out to do. I've been one of those rare people in my career. I've only ever had 2 jobs at this grand age. And my first job, I landed an extraordinary job working for a gentleman called Alan Corran, Giles Corran's father, at a magazine called Punch magazine, which maybe people might know. It was rivaled Private Eye. It was a cartoon magazine, a historical magazine. And I was in charge of the cartoonists, one of those kind of rare jobs that you can't, when you leave, you can't go and look for another one like that. And Alan had unfortunately passed away, and we had new young editors and they were changing the magazine. And I thought, I've had the best of this place and I need to think about something else to do. So I walked into a recruitment agency one day and they said, have you thought about hotels? And I said, well, no, not really. And then I ended up at the Savoy Hotel. And once I got into hotels, I really realised I just found the place that I really needed to be. And then we were the Savoy Group at that point. And then we sold the Savoy and then gradually became Maybourne. I was just working at the Berkeley Hotel, which was sort of the smaller, younger hotel of the group, not so well known. So I had to work extra hard to bring it and elevate it and fight against Claridge's and the Savoy. And then eventually we became Maybourne, and through time, I eventually reached this position where I'm in charge of all the hotels, and we now have 2 additional hotels, or we have 3 additional hotels. We have 3 in London, including now the Emory, our newest edition that launched in April, and we have one in Maybourne Beverly Hills and the Maybourne Riviera, and we have ambitions to grow the company. So there's been a lot of change since I first joined. Fantastic.
And the other London hotels, just in case anybody doesn't know?
Well, they would be, and as we have in running order, Claridge's, the Connaught, both Mayfair institutions, and the Berkeley in Knightsbridge as well, in Belgravia.
And you have other properties elsewhere?
The Maybourne Beverly Hills in Beverly Hills in LA that we opened during COVID, and the Maybourne Riviera, an extraordinary property high in Roquebrune overlooking Monte Carlo and France. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well,
yeah, all like very different.
I'd quite like to get out there, please. Yes. And you've been with the Maybourne Group for 2.5 decades, which is, that's unbelievable loyalty. You never hear of stuff like that. Yes. What have been some of the highlights of that time?
Well, I never planned to stay there for that long, but I actually have been lucky. It's been one of those companies that there was forever something exciting going on around me. So I never really had to leave to go and find excitement. It came by to me, whether it was luckily I arrived at a time when we were working with Gordon Ramsay as a chef. And then obviously the restaurants at Claridge's have been everything through working with Daniel Hum. And we have 3 Michelin stars with Hélène de Rose, Maricola Greco in south of France. All the best chefs have been with us, and the best bars openings and the best spas. So luckily I've worked with the best. Highlights always for me, I always talk to somebody about during the Olympic year here in London, we had an empty ballroom, and we went to Copenhagen to speak to René Redzepi, who was the #1 chef in the world at that time at a place called Noma. And we said, why don't you come and do a pop-up at Claridge's? And he was kind of a real rock god of the food world. And he said, you know what, that sounds cool. And he came to Claridge's, and I thought he's going to look at this sort of traditional, glamorous old hotel and think, how can I fit my Nordic world into it? And he said, it's just perfect. So we announced a collaboration, Noma at Claridge's, with René. It sold out straight away, and it really became an extraordinary experience. So much so that we were actually serving live ants to Claridge's guests at that point. And we ran out of ants, and somebody was sent off to get more ants, because ants out in Copenhagen taste of lemongrass. Who knew?
Who knew?
But it was the first of the start of us doing things at Claridge's that kind of took us into a different place, slightly unexpected, not what people would expect. And kind of we loved that. Every day before service, he'd get all the Claridge's staff in and turn up Metallica music, and everyone to get them all sort of, in the vibe for service. And we'd never felt that before, and it was exciting, and brought in a different generation of people, and we continued with that. Yeah,
I love it. At LCC, as you know, we talk a lot about luxury brand behaviour, being bold, unexpected, playful, and not taking yourself too seriously whilst working with experts. I mean, that's like the most perfect example.
I mean, it was obviously the world's greatest chef, but and I suppose if you are the world's greatest chef, you can afford to be like that as well, a little bit.
Yes, and as could Claridge's.
Exactly. So we've adopted a little bit of things like that as well. Yeah, that's great. And then I suppose when we first started Claridge's Christmas tree, which was about 15 years ago now, and I had to, I was with a friend and who worked at Dior, and we were sitting having a coffee, and we saw John Galliano sitting in the foyer. And we laughed and said, oh, why don't we just ask John to design Claridge's Christmas tree? And never think it would go anywhere. But it went to Paris, and Paris said, yeah, we love this idea. So I had to go to the general manager of Claridge's at that time and say, this year, instead of a traditional tree with Bond Street carrier bags, which is what it had been, it'll be a frozen tropical tree with snakes and leopards. And instead of him saying, have you lost your mind, woman? He just said, wow, that sounds fabulous. And so we went with it. I don't think I slept for about 3 weeks in the install of it. And when it was unveiled, and it was an extraordinary installation piece of artwork, it was very mixed feelings. There were some people that thought Claridge's had lost their marbles. But we stood with it, and we stuck with it. And then, the next year he did it again. There's an underwater coral reef, and again, with lighting as if it was the water, and it became an art installation effectively. And then every year now, we ask one of our guests. It always has to be one of our guests. It's not a commercial transaction. It's a love letter from a guest that loves Claridge's to Claridge's. And we've had everybody from Karl Lagerfeld to Christian Louboutin, who brought the Luby Express train into the lobby where you could sit with a conductor and have a glass of champagne.
Love that.
I mean, the Claridge's Christmas tree, always a highlight.
It's an institution. And everyone looks forward to hearing what it's going to be next year, or this year, actually. Christmas is coming. Can you give us a hint? Well,
I think we were probably revealed by the time. And last year, we worked with Louis Vuitton, extraordinary brand. Louis Vuitton used to stay at Claridge's himself. He was the dresser for the Empress Eugenie, who always had a suite of rooms at Claridge's. So that was a slightly different one. But delighted this year. It's coming back to London, and 2 national treasures. And we're working with Sir Paul Smith, who has been a long-standing guest of ours. In fact, used to come and comes and stays with his family at Claridge's every year. So
nice.
I'm delighted to be able to work with him on this tree. So
can't wait to see what you
it's
guys
always
get
a
up
career
to.
highlight, I must say.
Yeah, wonderful.
Every year.
My goodness. Well, just going back to sort of, I guess, what the job is as a communication director, and I want to hear much more about all these magical stories you have in a bit. The comms director, I guess, role has evolved everywhere, probably more so for you than anyone, being in the same role for 25 years. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's been like and how it's changed?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when I first came in, I was doing travel, and the most important thing on the press release was the thread count of your sheets and how big was your plasma TV, and it was very traditional and conventional. And then I would say, obviously, the world has changed so much from then, but I think we don't really play in that space anymore. It was a very travel world. And as the hotels have evolved, and certainly the way I'm very lucky at Maybourne that we've always had owners or managers that pushed us beyond. They would say, look at what everyone else is doing and do something different. So I think I've been very honoured to be in a company that encourages that sort of thinking. So now we're not really thinking about travel quite so much. Of course, that's taken as a given. But now it is more about what artists are you working with? We're in spas, we're in bars, we're in restaurants, we're in art, we're in design, we're in neuroscience, we're in, we wake up in the morning and we say, who should we play with today? And I think that's a really exciting thing to be. And that's why I think hospitality now, and I would recommend it to anybody, because it really can touch on almost everything that you want to work on. And if you're in that privileged position, so it's just not about how you fold a bed or how many maids you have. That's taken as given, I think, at the level of hotels that we are in. So how has it changed? I think it also, because through various things that we've worked on, that have always been about driving commercial business. And I think that's really important sometimes, particularly in hotels, where often you can be seen sitting in a bar with a glass of champagne, which we still continue to do. But everything that we do, whether how light and playful it looks, the end goal is driving commercial success.
Absolutely. Whether
that's your positioning, which ultimately does it, or whether it's to drive a particular bottom line experience, whether it's covers in restaurants or whether it's to drive business into the suites and bedrooms, certainly. And I think that's a really important thing of it. And we have a very loud voice. Whenever we're talking about bringing on a new chef or a pop-up or something, PR has the voice in that, and it's how is that going to work? And I think that's credit to the industry now that it's taken so seriously, and that's from, again, positioning. We've had a hand in every chef coming on board and our views on it.
Wonderful.
It's extraordinary.
Excellent. I mean, that's what we want to hear, that PR's being, PR communication, whatever you call it, your department is actually at that seat, at that table, in terms of management decisions, which is so important.
Correct.
You said in an interview, another interview you did, that you thought that hotels were more like a sort of a theatre now than actually operating as beds, which I thought was really interesting. Yes,
I really... like I say, I don't think we're in travel. We're in the world of theatre. And I think, again, when I first started and the company, we had a rule, like no photography in the hotels. No one was allowed to take out a camera. We could certainly never disturb a guest with a photo shoot or anything going on. It was the guests' privacy and everything was, and obviously privacy is absolutely still, and discretion is fundamental to the root of our hotels. However, there is a feeling now, and obviously we're in our world of our whole Instagram, so we can't stop guests taking photographs, and we never would do either, that if you don't see a little bit of magic or something, a little bit of a wow moment, particularly at somewhere like Claridge's, which is, the sort of big theatrical voice within the company, that you feel a bit cheated. So when you have moments like the whole of the Sex and the City cast coming down the staircase at Claridge's and the foyer all stand up and cheer because they're going off to the premiere, or we have the London Philharmonic Orchestra playing in Claridge's lobby and people didn't even know about it, but instead of apologising to guests because we were doing some filming, they love it and they want to be involved in it. So absolutely. That is a shift and a change to sort of getting guests involved in that, and we encourage that a little bit.
How do you balance sort of that sort of thing, that sort of super sexy, fun, and also just current, I guess, things that you're doing to keep up with current trends? How do you balance that with then your storytelling about, I guess, the history and the rich heritage?
Well, particularly at Claridge's and the Connaught, which are both Mayfair institutions and both several hundred years old, we have a very rich history and we love our history. We have an archivist that tells the story of the history and we try and keep it relevant to things going on today. I mean, when there was the coronation of the king, we brought out all our coronation memorabilia and we tried to tell that story as well. But we don't live in it. And absolutely, we try and stay relevant to today. For the last 15 years at Claridge, so if you walk into Claridge's, you will see obviously fantastic photographs of Sir Winston Churchill, the Queen, Jackie Onassis, and you've got that such rich history and heritage, which people love, and it's what attracts to them.
It's important.
But we also now have our own artist in residence, David Downton, who's an extraordinary fashion illustrator. And for the last 15 years, we've also been inviting our guests who stay with us now, who are notable and special to us, to be drawn by David. And we now have a talking heads gallery on the ground floor of Claridge's, where he draws, and he's drawn everybody from Dame Joan Collins to Dita Von Teese to Sarah Jessica Parker to Christian Louboutin to Johnny Ive. And then they're called talking heads because he then decides who would be talking to who. At the moment, he's just done Edward Enninful and Diane von Furstenberg, and they're best friends, so they're talking to each other as well. Dame Creston Scott Thomas is talking to Gwendolyn Christie, and we're about to reveal some new faces that we've just been drawing, and that is. We're custodians of this hotel at the moment, and this is our contribution for the 20th century. One day, I hope 100 years' time, someone will look back and think, who are these amazing people and why did this happen? And this is our contribution, and that's keeping relevant to today, really, as well.
Absolutely. Gosh, I mean, again, master storytelling. This really is.
Well, do you know what? I met David at a party somewhere. Someone said, oh, you two will love each other. And I always say to people, go to places, meet people, love people, and if you meet someone that's a soulmate and you can just see there's some magic there, plot and plan with them. Plot and plan is my favourite thing.
Great advice. Thank you.
I was with somebody at dinner a few years ago, and it was like on everyone's lips, and he happened to be a ballroom dancer, and he's fabulous, and so I met him for a drink, and he's now, and has been for the last 10 years, our ballroom dancer in residence. So he teaches people getting married their first dance.
Oh, sweet.
And then recently we used him. We had an Argentinian pop-up at the Emory, and we used him we thought, how do we get over that Argentinian? I know, we need a tango dancer. And he did this most extraordinary tango dance from the ground floor up. So bringing theatre, again, as you rightly say, it's elevating it and a little bit unexpected sometimes maybe as well.
Absolutely. And let's talk a bit more about the Emory, because that's one that doesn't come with this sort of heritage and history.
Yes.
That's a much newer building.
Yes, so the Emory, which means industrial leader, is a very different hotel. It's very contemporary design. One of the last architectural designs by Richard Rogers here in London. And when you look at it, you can see it. It's in Knightsbridge, just on Knightsbridge behind the Berkeley Hotel. Got these extraordinary sails at the top of it. It's an all-suite hotel. But as you rightly say, it's completely different to other properties. There is no lobby. There is no heart of the hotel as such. It has a restaurant downstairs, ABC Kitchens, and then underneath it has a well-being club called Seren, which maybe we talk about a little bit because that's about the future of everything going on down there. And then on the roof we have a rooftop bar. But it's been an interesting one because it's all about very quiet luxury there as well. There are very few hotels in London that do that. And what's been extraordinary is how people have understood that this is different. And of course, we have 4 hotels in London. And it's very important for us as we do our storytelling that we give them all a slightly different story. So there was absolutely no point opening a new hotel to sort of cannibalize our business with the other hotels. At the Emory, when you stay there, you have a chauffeur-driven car to collect you and take you back. So that's always included. So we know when you're arriving. So there's always somebody there for you. But because of the low-key luxury at the Emory, we have thought and talked a lot about what is our storytelling. I remember Jeremy King telling me a story that when he opened the Beaumont Hotel, which he doesn't have anymore, he had to create this character called Billy Beaumont who lived there because it was a car park before, and he could only really get his head around that hotel if he had a character that lived in it, which makes you realise you do have to have storytelling for these things as well. But one of the things that maybe is a little bit interesting that we've started to do at the Emory is that it was a place where we felt it was time well spent. That's a kind of hotel marketing word. But to bring that alive a little bit, we've actually decided to also make that the home of horology here in London. If anyone doesn't know, horology is the world of the art of watchmaking and time telling.
I'm going to pretend I knew that.
I know you did. I know you did as well. And we have recognised over the last few years through various things that we've done that our guests are sort of slightly watch obsessed wherever they are in the world. They collect legendary watches. They're fascinated in the art of timekeeping, etc. So we've collaborated with two of the horology world's leading experts, Nick Fowkes, very well luxury journalist, everybody I'm sure will know, and George Bamford from the Bamford family, who has his own watch company. And we've created a YouTube channel called After Hour, or a YouTube show called After Hours, where we talk to the leading players and groundbreakers in the world of watchmaking when they come to town. So that's everybody from Chopard to Piaget to Rolex, and they all now work with extraordinary artists and designers. Everyone is trying to sort of up their game with everything they do, and so we host these shows on the rooftop, and we're hosting events, and we're doing a big Rolex launch there next week. So the world of horology is something, and working with these luxury brands who also. Nobody has really done that before, and so they are making the Emory their home of where they want to host things as well. So that is giving us our little bit of personality and storytelling that feels really right for the brand.
It does feel right. And it's really smart, and actually, as you say, no one else has done that, and probably now won't, which is great. So you can own that space really nicely.
I think that's hard. I think that's the part of it. It's like, how do we all? And there's just so many amazing hotels in London, and we love them all. And it's like, and there's space for everyone, and they're growing, as you know. There's more and more hotels opening. How do you find your hotel that someone says that's the hotel that I want to play with and to be in with and to stay with? That's got my vibe.
Yes. Well, lots of luxury brands are doing that through, I guess, being innovative in more sort of, I guess, technological ways, whether it's experimenting with NFTs or metaverse or gaming or indeed AI now.
Yes.
And that's something the hospitality industry has been doing for a long time.
Yes.
In a different way, because it's behind the scenes,
yes.
isn't it?
Yes,
Whereas
it is.
Actually, your storytelling is very much human-centric. It's actually almost the opposite of that.
Yes. I mean, I think, and of course, we are behind the scenes experimenting with all of that. But I do think there is a keeping it real element. And the one thing that we also really love is the high-low side of doing things as well. Like not being too pompous as these great grand palaces and historical hotels, keeping, as you said earlier, that sort of playfulness of it. When we launched Claridge's cocktail book recently, we actually had a bar crawl and made these little cards, and everyone had to have their cards stamped, and everyone was running around. And I think we're going to probably be doing a Connaught bar crawl and having it as a permanent, bars have become the thing. It's like, I think I said to you before, the rock gods of the hotels many years ago were the mixologists. Absolutely. All our hotels now have 4 bars, which is quite extraordinary. So, particularly at the Connaught bar, now Ago and Georgie have gone on to be world famous with the best bars in the world. And then, during COVID, the new rock gods, they handed over to the pastry chefs. And now, sort of by law, again, we have to have a pastry chef or a pastry shop in all our hotels. So we have the Connaught patisserie, and now we work with Cedric Grolet, one of the world's greatest pastry chefs, at the Berkeley as well. And, again, it's taking hotels into a whole world and being part of their community as well. And I think that's something really hard that we work at as well.
It also makes the lobby smell absolutely delicious.
Well, absolutely. Those Villa Madeleine, if you know that the vanilla madeleines come out the oven at 11 o'clock.
I see, that's what it is.
There is a special moment on that one. Yeah, exactly.
I was sitting in the Emory lobby the other day, and I could have stayed there all day. It was wonderful. People watching as well. I mean, very much, it's a beautiful crowd as well. There's glamorous people everywhere. With the smells, and then having lovely chats with you. I mean, it's a wonderful place to be.
And one of the things that we do work quite hard as a company, although I'd like to think it feels quite effortless, but we do manipulate it a bit, is work in their community as well. We talk about, particularly at Claridge and at Connaught, being the living rooms of Mayfair. You will walk in and you will see people and I think having the community, the neighbourhood, using hotels. When I first started again in hotels, when we said at the beginning, it was really tourists. It was international crowd, and I think I've really seen a big shift as we start working with London, collaborating with London institutions and people, and we have our gangs in our hotels that we call our families as well. The people that become part of our crowd that we invite to our things and that are our friends and family. And I think that's a very important thing. And we do slightly different people with slightly different hotels. That's again, having 4 in London, people say, oh my God, I'm just sorry, I'm a Connaught person. There's no way you're never going to lure me to the Emory. And then I'll always just love the Berkeley for some people. And I love that. We can share the love.
Absolutely. And I have to say, personally, my background, as you know, is in hotels. There is nothing I love more than sitting in a hotel lobby, smelling the pastries, and then hitting the cocktail bar at night. That's where you'll find me. I
think you'll find also people say a lot these days that, particularly with these sort of old school, not old fashioned, but old school hotels, and I count us in that when the world is a little scary, which it kind of is at all times, this week particularly maybe, that sitting in those hotels, you feel nothing bad can ever happen to you.
So true.
And it's all is well with the world. And that's also part of that bit that you say about, like, you can go into Claridge's lobby and it hasn't changed since for 100 years. And yet we've dug down 7 floors. We've gone up 7 floors. The restaurant's changed 8 times. But walking in through the revolving doors, you will always have that sense of, I'm back where I belong, and it feels good. But then you'll find other surprises elsewhere.
And this surprising and delighting guests is something that you guys, well, as discussed, are masters of. What's your favourite one you've ever done?
Well, I think. And I think it's actually quite an easy one for me. And unfortunately, we don't do it anymore. And I'm still looking for the next one to replace it. So if anybody's got any ideas, please contact me.
I'll do my best.
So, yeah. And this was the wonderful time when Burberry was at its absolute, highest profile in London. It was, owning London, doing those amazing fashion shows that they used to do outside the Albert Hall. And we met with them and we said, there must be something we can do. And they were opening a big new store on Regent Street. And we came up when we plotted and planned with a part to that when you arrived at any of our suites in the company and you opened the wardrobe doors, there were 2 Burberry trench coats hanging there in your size, with a lovely little note saying, come rain, come shine, please you wear these coats and while you're enjoying London life. And it was kind of the outdoor equivalent of a bathrobe from the hotels. And everyone was overwhelmed. It felt like a service touch rather than a commercial Burberry venture. And of course, you could use them with the compliments. Absolutely no problem. We had we kept them in every size. Our butlers were all trained in them. And, very often guests would then buy them. Burberry were very digital at that point, but to put on a Burberry coat and really a trench and feel it. And it was such an iconic thing. And it nodded to the weather and it nodded to a gesture. And everybody was charmed and delighted by that. I mean, and that went really well.
Well, that example is that's actually the blueprint for exceptional PR. It's cited all over the place. We have an agency called Shephard Communications. We talk about that all the time to clients as sort of the best examples. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. But they're hard to do, and they're hard to better on things like that as well. So, and to collaborate on things. I love doing that when we can, but when it feels like a really authentic fit like that, it's great.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you.
Let's talk about challenging moments. So has there been any moment in your career where you felt either you're out of your depth or you've just been really tested? Can you think of any examples of that?
Do you know what? The really amazing thing is actually not too many times, which is testament to the hotels that run things very smoothly. So I haven't. But the one thing that I feel that enough time has gone by that I can talk about it without hyperventilating. It was something that we now allude to as Boobgate on Brook Street, which was an unfortunate time when we asked a breastfeeding mother to cover up with a napkin, or a member of the team did. And I think somebody said, "Oh, don't worry, it's only a breastfeeding mother." And it's like, "Oh, I think you'll find that's you've misjudged that." And then within 2 hours, we found we were all over every single national newspaper.
Oh, goodness.
And globally, actually, as well.
Oh, right.
This is where you kind of realise with the sort of, the power of your brand works beautifully when you're telling great stories, and it puts you over. But this was a very tricky moment for us. We weren't used to dealing with crisis management. I actually did have somebody we could turn to who's very much, our natural default position would be to go out so it's culminated in, I think, 50 breastfeeding mothers marching down Brook Street and chaining themselves to the railings. And we all wanted to go out and give hot chocolate and teddy bears, but we were very much advised that was probably not the best. I know. Sorry, that's something
I'd done that.
my natural. But to be very, not go out and do things like that. We went mea culpa, but it was obviously a very, very sensitive subject, and it took a while for it to sort of die down. And it was watching it on everything from Gogglebox to Have I Got News for You, as people would say, which hotel did this. I mean, like I say, I can laugh a little bit now, but it was a real wake-up call to us to learn, at any point with the caliber of people that we have staying and what we do and the profile of the hotels, that anything could happen. It took a long time for us to recover from that. And it did take me out of that, but I'm better prepared now.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah. We learn.
We learn, exactly.
Exactly. We do better and we learn.
Exactly.
Staying on you for a little bit more, just two more questions, if you don't mind. You've got nearly 40,000 followers on Instagram. Now, that's actually very rare for someone who's a communication director. And it really sort of shows your passion for the hotels as you go around the world and show beautiful things. Do you find that plays into your hotel strategy, or is that just more of a personal passion project?
It's not part of my hotel strategy. It is quite personal. I mean, it is my own account, and I actually don't even say all views here are my own. But I am obviously very mindful that it involves my hotels, and I'm careful what I post. But I do also post, and we do actually also post other hotels, other restaurants, other things. I think it's very important that we have to be generous as a hotel company as well. We're big institutions, and it was something we learned a lot during COVID, to try and learn to be more generous with our communities. And before, I think maybe we didn't really talk about anything that was outside our own orbit, but I think the world, it's much better to be more generous. And for us, if other restaurants in Mayfair aren't doing well, we won't do well. We need our community to flourish. So whether it's in my own personal account or on our accounts of the hotels, we love to support and welcome new people and help the industry as such as well.
Yeah, it's definitely generous to share the limelight. But you have been doing that a long time with your collaborations, be it with designers or chefs or whoever else.
Yeah.
I've got one final question, which is going to be my one that I ask all of our guests who come on Icons. What does luxury mean to you?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that one, and it's something I have thought about a lot. And I wanted to be super clever and come up with something nobody would ever thought of, but unfortunately, it probably falls back to so many people. I mean, you know, obviously we have the pleasure and privilege, huge privilege, to be working in the middle of a luxury industry and, you know, working long hours and you know, particularly now we have international hotels. It's, you know, you're full on all the time, and obviously in a wonderful world, whether it's you're going outside to other things. So for me, really, 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 the biggest luxury is a Friday night going home, shutting the door. We used to have a tradition as a family that was phones away, Thai takeaway on, sitting on the sofa. And even to this day, my kids aren't little anymore, but that is really the biggest luxury night, is a Friday night at home, door shut, world shut out, and just in our little Fitzherbert cocoon.
Oh, that sounds dreamy.
Sorry, cheesy.
I mean, maybe with then the idea that you're going to the Maldives the next morning.
Oh, no, absolutely. Probably at Tesco's in Peckham.
Well, perfect. A great place to leave it. Thank you so much, Paula. It's been lovely having you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us for Luxury Icons. This has been brought to you by the Luxury Communications Council in conjunction with Trapdoor Productions. If you'd like more information on the Luxury Communications Council, please visit our website, luxurycommunicationscouncil.com.